So what is an apex? How do we find it? Why is it even important? Who can lay this? Why should we lay this? All of these questions we'll be answering in today's video. So let's go. So the apex is the highest point of an enhancement that is located at the weakest point of our nail. So I'm going to demonstrate how to find it. To demonstrate this, I'll be using a tip. So I apply some pressure to my natural nail with the tip, and that color that change from pink to white, that is where your apex is. I'll be demonstrating on these three nails. I'll be doing it my way, how I usually do it, and the correct way, which I think that my way is so similar to it, and then I will do the not so correct way. So I'll be working with 3 beads. So I'm going with my very first bead that was quite large to the starting of the tip to the ending of the nail, and after I have this, I will then go ahead with my second dry bead. So this bead was a little bit large because I thought I could have manipulated the product a little bit more into the cuticle area, but it did not happen, so I went in with a smaller moist bead, and that seemed to have done the job. So after I had done this, I will then go in on the second nail. So this is how I usually do my nail, and my apex is quite strong, as you guys can see, because for the second bead I tend to work with a more drier bead because I don't want that bead to pull down all the way to the tip of the nail. So I want it to be in a specific area. Move on to the correct way of doing the nails. If I have not mentioned before, the area that I showed you in previous clips of how to find where to lay the apex, this is called your stress point on the nail, and there's a reason as to why it's called stress point. So the first bead that I'm going in with is usually a larger bead, and I'll place that in the stress point area to build up the apex. So why is laying an apex important? So as I said before, stress point, that part of the nail comes under a lot of stress, especially if the nails are long. So we need to have a build up to ensure that this area is not under any pressure. So we want to build up that area. Also, when we think about just creating an apex for a nail, we have to consider the balancing of the nail. So we just don't want to build up an area, the stress point area. It will stick to a point where the tip of the nail is quite weak. We have to ensure that the nail is properly balanced out. So the area that will have more product is obviously the apex area. The tip will have the second to large bead, and then the cuticle area will have a small bead. So it's a large, medium, small bead. Move on to the third and final nail, and I'm showing you guys where I will be placing my bead. So this is the area that you should not be placing your bead because that's not the stress point area. We're not covering a lot of that stress point area. I just place it a little above the tip, but there's not a lot of product that is there. And after doing this, I will feather it out just like I would do any other nail. So after that, I will then go ahead and use a small bead in the cuticle area. So I'm just following the steps of how I would follow in the correct way of doing the acrylic. The same standard, just a different placement of the apex. So we don't want this because, as you guys can see from side view, once you hit that nail, you can see the weakness in this nail, honestly. So once you see that nail, once you hit this nail, it's a done deal. Your nail is going to be damaged underneath. So you don't necessarily have to rip off, but when the nail comes off, there's going to be a tear underneath the nail. That's where the stress point area is. So here's a side view of the nails. So now I'm going in with an emery board to balance each of these nails out as best as I possibly can. Also, a tip to show if the nails are properly balanced is to place it on top of the nail. And if you see a gap on it, that means the nails are not properly balanced. So I'm going to go in with the emery board to file the nail to somewhat of a balance. So I'll do this on each of the nails. I'll show you guys if the nail is properly balanced. But to show you that the correct way is that when I place it on top of the nail, I could barely see a gap. So that's the correct way. And when I filed a little bit, there was no gaps. On the third nail, it looks as if it's normal. well, to the eye that does it very often, it is not normal. Trust and believe me. I will also prove this at the very end of the video as to why your apex should not go there. So I'm going with my e-file, going around the cuticle area, ensuring that it's flush to my natural nail, and then I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So finally we're done, so I'm about to show you using a wooden stick, demonstrating as in previous clips how to show that the nails are properly balanced. Some persons like when they have a lot of hump, so the nail goes in a very slanted position. That is quite fine. So the next nail, this is where you lay the apex properly, it's flat onto the nail. This is also the not correct way of applying your acrylic, and there's a major gap right there, so we need to build it up to balance the whole nail. So there's a lot of strength at the tip, from the tip of the tip to the end of the tip. There's a lot of strength there, but there's not a lot of strength in the cuticle apex area. So we need to build the apex, the stress point area, to prevent it from damaging. So some persons may ask why the very first nail never balanced like the second nail. Is a preference, and I mean, at the end of the day, my stress point area is properly covered and properly built up, so I don't have any trouble in that corner. But for the third nail, you guys obviously saw where I placed the apex and how the same size beading that I placed, and it's very clear that that nail is weak. It don't necessarily mean if you heat it up the nail will come off, but if you soak off, I guarantee you there's going to be a tear on your nail. So be smart about the decision that you make for your clients and also for yourself with any nail tech that is doing your hands. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment down below if you wish, and follow me on my socials, and I'll see you guys in the next video.